Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. So it's the first full day of Fina's release, and today we're gonna find out whether she's actually broken or maybe a little bit overhyped. With that said, I'm super excited to get her and her weapon, so let's get to farming. Alright, so that took about 4 hours, but now we have Fina and her weapon. I've brought her skills up to 6, 6, and 6. I'm not going to unlock her introns yet so I can test her at I0. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get intron 2. Really close, but just 4 off. So just reading through her kit, Fina's an insane support for consonance weapons. Her actual abilities and bonus elemental damage doesn't look like it's going to apply to skills like Rebecca E. But the rest of her buffs, like to be continued, apply to everything, so that's not a big deal. It's pretty clear that Intron 2 is where you want to be for support Fina. I'm interested in seeing how the AI handles her ult for Intron 1, if it'll keep all 4 fields active for 24%, or if it's just going to do one at a time. Looking at our brand new weapon, Dreamweaver's Feather. This should be best in slot. 90% attack at smelt 1 is a ton, but it could also go both ways. If your DPS has too much attack, it might not be worth that much, but it might also let you trade attack for other stats on DPS build. We'll see how that works out after playing her and testing more builds. I've brought Dreamweaver up to 70, Smelt 0, and for now we have a trigger probability and multi-shot build. For Fina, I put her on a standard buffing build with uplift and a bunch of skill duration and a little bit of inspo for skill efficiency. So with all of that out of the way, it's time to play Fina. We'll start off in meditation, then we'll bring her into the immersive theater to see how she does as a support. So Fina's pretty simple to play. What you do is you press your ultimate, you cycle through all of your fields, and then when you're done with all 4, you go back to the one that you need. Let's say we need Pyro, we click twice, and then we get to that one and we'll stay on this one to give us the bonus damage on Fina's Pyro hits. Aside from that, use your E to activate your passive Bad Sorcerers Hate Sunlight. So what this does is, it'll give you 6 stacks of Tailweaver Quill for every time that you use E. That'll increase Fina's and your allies' damage based on however many Tailweaver stacks you have. Now keep in mind that the max number of stacks is 30, and your ultimate generates 1 stack of Tailweaver Quill per second. So realistically, you'd use E at the beginning of a fight whenever you don't have any Tailweaver stacks to get your stacks up to 30 as quickly as possible. After that, you wouldn't be using E too much aside from repositioning and increasing your own damage. So that's really it for the basics of Fina. If there's one thing I've noticed, it's that every time you press Q to go to the next element, there's a small delay between when you press Q and when the field actually activates. So make sure you're not skipping past any elements in your very first activation. But you can also take advantage of this and skip through basically infinitely until you land on the one that you want. So let's say you wanted to activate Anemo first because the enemies are weak to Anemo. You can press Q 3 times, skip straight to Anemo, then press Q again 2 times to go to Pyro, once to go to Electro, then you're right back on Anemo to maximize your damage. As you can see here, your ultimate sustains the Tailweaver stacks pretty well on its own. So the only time you'd really have to use E is when it's hovering at 26, 27 and you want to get to 30. Then this will stay at 30 for however long your buff duration is. Then once it starts running out, use E again and you're right back at 30. So that's the very basics of playing Fina on your own. Next, let's go test her out in the Immortal Theater as a support to see how she does. So we'll start off on Act 12. I haven't activated Fina's first Intron just yet so that we can get a better idea of how she performs at Intron 0. So we're just going to take a look at her AI and what it does. So it looks like it does a good job of cycling through all of the elements to make sure that you have your I1 up if it was activated. And it does a good job of keeping Animo on the field. I'm not sure if that's because we're doing a bunch of Animo damage or because the AI knows that the enemies are weak to Animo, but either way it's doing a pretty good job. Now damage wise, she is doing a ton. Compared to my Daphne with about the same investment, Psyche is cutting through these enemies like a hot knife through butter. It's actually crazy how much damage Fina's doing on her own. She's holding Animo on the field, and each hit is doing like at least 10k, and I'm seeing 40k for the non-buffed elements and 50k for Animo, which is buffed. Let's see how she does against Crystallophile. Wow. That's insane. That's a lot of damage. I actually think that's faster than my clear with Lady Neefle while I was farming. It's 30 seconds faster than a Psyche Truffle Lady Neefle setup. And that's with Intron 0. That's not even with all of the pen stats from I1. So I am looking forward to activating I1. But if you're only able to farm for I0, then that is more than enough for all the content in this game. We're going to go ahead and unlock Intron 1 at this point. And just do a quick run of 12 one more time, and we'll see how fast we're able to clear. So now with I1 activated, we're hitting for at least 40k on every hit, and a max of like 115k, just from the bonus elemental damage. That's crazy. So the average is about 70k damage times 4. That's 280,000 extra damage for every single hit that you're doing. I mean, it's insane. She's shredding through everything. Oh, that's unlucky. Oh, and she died. Okay. 4 minutes 15 seconds, so about the same as I0, but Fina died at the very end. We're going to try this again, making sure that Crystallophile doesn't go into Homeless Howl before we can kill him. So I've probably skipped through all of the mobbing in the editing, but now we're back here. Hopefully Fina doesn't fall this time and we don't get the invuln phase, so that we can see what our time actually looks like compared to the very first run with I0. Alright, so we did it this time and it is almost 45 seconds faster. Now we did spend 15 seconds at the beginning of run number 1, so we're going to subtract that from the time. And the difference between I1 and I0 is 30 seconds. That's like a 13% difference just from upgrading from I0 to I1. The rest of the setup is all the same. Now this was just a release day first impressions video. Obviously we have a ton more testing to do before we figure out what the best setup on Fina is, but it's pretty clear that Fina is insanely strong. She outclasses basically every other support, and for the time being she'll probably be paired with Truffle as the main support duo for basically everyone in the game. So that'll be all for this Fina first impressions video. As always, like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this type of content or if you have any feedback. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.